So I wanted to read this comment and address it. It's kind of a longer comment, but it has a lot of deep concerns that this person is having about realization. And there's a lot of crossover with other people's experiences, I know, because I hear motifs of this sort quite a bit. But anyway, it may be helpful for me to answer this, so I'm going to go ahead and read it. This is from Shayon. Dear Angelo, I have been meaning to write this comment for months now, but every time I did, I waited for a few hours and never submitted it. I am finally doing it this time. I hope you respond. I think my progression over the last couple of years, especially in the last few weeks, can be interpreted two ways. From one perspective, I am developing severe psychiatric conditions, tremendous paranoia, total meaninglessness, and futility with the inevitability of death, and feeling like I have run out of life force. From another perspective, this is part of an awakening process, and everything is on course just as it should be. I am losing layers of belief, losing interest in the stories I drew my life force from, realizing death is the most real thing in the dream state, and that which is true must be beyond death, beyond all stories. From the perspective of I am going mad, where I am in this state, all of this is spiritual bypassing, my ego refusing to believe that it, a very smart and sane person, can go insane. From the perspective of direct experiential clarity, where I am in that state, when I am in that state, all is perfectly perfect. Isness is unmistakably here. Existence is existencing, and even the highest kind of apparent wrong is absolutely perfect. Some background on where I think I might be in terms of spiritual progress. If I look for the self, I find none. If I look for time, I find nothing. If I look for any possibility of knowledge or preference over anything, I find an utter absurdity. None of these realizations are stable or effortless yet, but they are gradually deepening in a gruesome, messy, and ugly way. I have been doing a lot of shadow work for the past 2 years, but right now, the shadow material that is coming up feels overwhelming, weird, and new. Help, what is going on? Okay, so a few things about this. I don't know you personally. If I were to interact with you for a short time, I think I would have more clarity on what to say precisely to you, which leads me to, you may want to consider working with somebody. If you're putting this much effort, time, and energy and heart into this, I would probably recommend working with somebody like Chris Guimond, or perhaps Chelsea, or anyone really, Chad, Josh. I think Ishwar, if he's available. I think that the overarching feel I get from this is that your experience or your approach to realization is skewed to the masculine. It's too masculine. It's too like netty, like too like nothing, like too much elimination, too much destruction. Yeah. Many people who have a first awakening, will describe it as an I am sense. So I think there's some intelligence to that approach in that if we try to like go after no self-realization too early, it's confusing and distorting because it isn't actually no self-realization. It can only be viewed from the standpoint of the ego that's trying to like destroy itself, right? That's why you feel the kind of untoward effects of this, the dysphoria. It's like you're trying to demolish yourself somehow. You're trying to use the ego to demolish the ego. And also, I think this can lead people into applying like tremendous amounts of force, or almost too much effort in a way that can become counterproductive. So I think that you have a lot of clarity, obviously, but if things are feeling like they're getting more out of balance, then that's telling you something. So I'm less inclined to tell you to like inquire into what's not there or orient to teachers that talk about there being no one or no self. I think that's just going to be confusing at this point. I think I would align more with an experience of or recognition of pure consciousness, unbound consciousness, pure being, the I am sense. The I am sense is not, it could sound counterproductive in that you might believe you're trying to deconstruct an identity, but only the ego can believe that. Only the ego can believe you want to deconstruct an identity. The way identity gets deconstructed is not that way. It happens as a natural fruition of earlier realization, if that makes sense. So I would work on the earlier realization, and I would say, find where you have no boundaries. The experience of you, and I don't mean like look in my non-dual playlist. I mean, look in my consciousness playlist, right? These kinds of practices where it's just an experience of pure being, seeing that every single thought that arises, whether it's like I'm psychotic, I'm uncomfortable, I'm doing shadow work, or I see that everything's perfect. I see that all of this is actually not real. It's not true. There's clarity. Like all of those actually can be reified into beliefs, into thoughts. And when that's happening, even though they are underpinned by an actual experience, right? When all that's happening, you set up this kind of this almost extreme dualism in the mind, right? With your experience, like it's almost like you're trying to hold and define your experience. That is identity. And you can't just stop that from happening. That's a later fruition of practice, right? But all of this is being held by this identity structure, and it's trying to split itself in two in a way through ego effort or something. And that's not going to work. It's just going to lead to this. It leads to maybe some dissociation, discomfort, confusion, as you said, paranoia, extreme mental states. And you don't need extreme mental states to wake up. They happen sometimes, but you don't need them. And so if you're starting to see that, I wouldn't push more in that direction. I wouldn't push in the direction you're pushing in. I would actually stabilize yourself. I would stabilize your nervous system. I would stabilize consciousness. I would look for stability. Look for anything that drops you into the pure experience of being that is all-encompassing, including everything. Don't exclude anything anymore. Like this is too much exclusion, right? You need inclusion. Inclusion, which means every single thought that's ever appeared is already perfect. It's part of this experience of consciousness, including the thought that says I might go crazy, including the thought that says I'm unstable, etc. All of these can be moved toward. You can move toward that and move toward all experiences, move toward any experience, any thought, any belief, and just immerse yourself in the being, right? Immerse yourself in the knowingness of all experience. This is where I want to point you. I want to point you more in that direction. Hopefully this is landing and resonating. I could be off, but from what you said, and you said a lot, I think this is the right answer for you. I do want to say there are people who have underlying psychosis, right? Of course, there are people who have already been diagnosed with psychiatric disorders, whether it's schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, schizoaffective disorder, anything like that. If you're ever having true psychotic features, hearing voices, disorganized behaviors, your actual day-to-day functioning is starting to take a hit, then this may not be the path for you right now, right? That's why I say this in my book, and I say it under my videos, is like, this can be destabilizing to people without psychiatric illnesses. So if you have true psychiatric illness underneath, then you should definitely address that. I don't know if that's the case for you. I kind of don't suspect it based on what you said here, but total meaninglessness, futility with the inevitability of death, feeling like I've run out of life force, those sound much more like features of something like going through the awakening process and realization, even if it feels skewed to the disintegrative to me. But the one thing you did say was paranoia. Everyone has some tendency we all have some proclivity towards paranoia if we're put under enough stress, right? Our minds can do that. So I don't really know what you mean by that, but I just want to be clear that having true psychiatric symptoms or illness or whatever is a different situation, and you want to address that directly. But overall, I want to point you towards stability. Learn to ground yourself, learn to calm the nervous system, learn to do things and put yourself in environments that make you feel soothed, calm, relaxed. If you've been doing shadow work for years, I don't know, but I wonder what sort of shadow work you're doing. If you do relational shadow work, it may help a lot. For instance, like circling, inside circle type stuff that I've been talking about, that I've been doing and having workshops and so forth. That tends to be very stabilizing for people. It's not destabilizing. There probably are ways of doing shadow work that can be destabilizing, but that's actually rather stabilizing. It's intense when you're doing it, but you come through it in a very much more stable way. And it's probably the relational aspect. Well, there are many aspects to it, but it's the relational aspect of it that helps to stabilize and soothe the nervous system ultimately and so forth. So I would look for things that reafferentation of the vagus nerve, things that can calm, stabilize, and relax the nervous system. Practice in unbound consciousness, that kind of thing. Practice in being practices. Find inclusion. Practice inclusion instead of exclusion. That's where I want to point you, because, and talk to somebody who can help you through this, I think, maybe. If you're putting this, like I said, if you're putting this much effort, time, and heart into this, I think it's worth having some sort of mentor, someone who can help you through these difficult times. That's about all I can say if I don't actually know you or I'm not interacting directly with you, because otherwise I'm making some assumptions and so forth. But I do appreciate your comments, and hopefully that's helpful to some degree.